Stand on a quiet, silent lake in the Valley of Mexico 700 years ago, and you would see nothing but water, mud, and empty reeds today. Within just 200 years, that same forgotten lake held one of the richest, most terrifying cities the ancient world had ever fully built. This is the rise and fall of the Aztec Empire, a civilization forged from exile, prophecy, blood, ambition, and endless, relentless hunger. It clawed its way from utter nothing to total dominance over millions, then collapsed in less than 2 years once strangers arrived by sea. The story begins with wanderers, a poor exiled tribe called the Mexica, driven from their homeland and mocked by nearly every city they passed. For generations, they drifted through hostile territory, unwanted and landless, forced to survive on snakes and whatever the swamp offered them. Their priests carried a sacred prophecy from the war god Huitzilopochtli, an eagle perched upon a cactus, devouring a writhing serpent whole. In the year 1225, on a muddy, uninhabited island, the wandering Mexica finally witnessed that exact ancient vision. There, surrounded by mockery, mosquitoes, and stagnant water, the Mexica founded Tenochtitlan, a city almost no one believed could ever survive. They built floating gardens called chinampas, slowly turning a disease-ridden marsh into some of the most fertile farmland on the entire earth. Within a single century, the ragged outcasts had transformed into fearless warriors, forming alliances that would soon reshape the entire region. In 1428, Tenochtitlan joined with Texcoco and Tlacopan, forming the Triple Alliance that soon became the mighty Aztec Empire. Their armies swept steadily across Mesoamerica, conquering city after city and demanding tribute, captives, and total submission from the fallen. Gold, feathers, cacao, and captives poured endlessly into the capital, funding towering temples, glittering palaces, and a hungry empire's growth. By the very height of their power, the Aztecs ruled millions across hundreds of distant city-states, all paying tribute out of pure, raw fear. Yet beneath all that glittering wealth, quiet resentment was steadily building among the very people the Aztecs had long conquered and humiliated. At its peak, Tenochtitlan held far more residents than London or Paris, a dazzling city of causeways, canals, and gleaming white stone temples. Visitors described a stunning metropolis rising directly from the water, connected to the mainland by 3 enormous, heavily guarded causeways. The great temple towered high above the city, a pyramid dedicated to 2 gods, one of war and one of rain, both demanding constant offerings. The market at nearby Tlatelolco drew 60,000 people every single day, trading turquoise, exotic birds, cacao beans, and human slaves. Canals functioned like busy streets, canoes gliding silently past nobles in feathered cloaks and commoners hauling heavy baskets of maize. To the Spanish, who would later arrive, it seemed almost impossible, a floating city more magnificent than anything they had seen back in Europe. But all this magnificence rested on a brutal foundation, the deep belief that the sun itself would die without a constant offering of blood. Wars were fought not only for land and tribute, but to capture prisoners destined for the sacrificial stone waiting atop the great temple. Thousands were sacrificed every single year in elaborate ceremonies, meant to keep the fragile cosmos in balance and the hungry gods appeased. To the Aztecs themselves, this was never cruelty but survival, a sacred duty to hold back darkness and keep their entire fragile world turning. To the peoples they had conquered, however, it was pure terror. One more reason to despise an empire that demanded their own sons as tribute. That quiet, simmering hatred across 100 subject cities would soon become the sprawling empire's single greatest vulnerability of all. By 1500, Moctezuma II sat upon the throne, ruler of the single most powerful empire the Americas had ever known at all. Yet strange omens began troubling the capital, comets streaking silently across the night sky, and temples catching fire without explanation. Priests whispered an old, unsettling prophecy of a pale-bearded god named Quetzalcoatl, who might one day return from across the eastern sea. In 1519, unfamiliar ships finally appeared on the horizon, and Moctezuma faced a decision that would decide his entire empire's fate. He welcomed the strangers with lavish gifts of gold, still uncertain whether they were gods, omens, or something far more dangerous entirely. Their leader was Hernán Cortés, a Spanish conquistador with a small army, an insatiable hunger for gold, and absolutely no intention of leaving. Cortés marched steadily toward Tenochtitlan, and along the way he found something far more powerful than any weapon: willing local allies. The Tlaxcalans, long-time bitter enemies of the Aztecs, saw a rare chance for sweet revenge and joined the Spanish invaders in their thousands. When Cortés finally entered Tenochtitlan, he found a city beyond anything he had ever imagined, and he swiftly took its ruler hostage there. Tension soon exploded into open violence, and Moctezuma died amid the chaos, struck by stones thrown by his own furious, betrayed people. The Aztecs drove the Spanish out in one desperate, bloody night the conquistadors would forever remember as the terrible Night of Sorrows. But the Spanish soon returned, and this time they brought something no army could ever stop, a deadly disease the city had never seen before. Smallpox tore violently through the population, killing thousands who had no immunity, weakening the city before the final brutal siege began. For 75 relentless days, Cortés and his allies surrounded Tenochtitlan completely, cutting off all food and water, tightening their grip. Street by street, canal by canal, the once magnificent capital was slowly reduced to smoking rubble, ash, and the bodies of the dead below. On August 13th, 1521, Tenochtitlan finally fell for good, and with it, the empire that had ruled for nearly a century. The Spanish built a new city directly atop the ruins, a city that would one day become modern Mexico City, capital of a very different empire. The Aztec Empire, born from prophecy on a swampy, forgotten island, ended the same way so many empires eventually do, in fire and total silence. And yet, despite conquest, disease, and the deliberate erasure of an empire, the Aztec people and their language never truly disappeared at all. Their descendants still speak Nahuatl today, and the very symbols of that ancient prophecy still appear proudly on the modern flag of Mexico. History remembers Tenochtitlan not merely as a conquered city, but as living proof of what a forgotten, exiled people once dared to build. From desperate outcasts on a swamp to rulers of millions, the Aztec story remains one of history's most astonishing rises and falls ever told. If this journey through a lost empire captivated you, make sure to subscribe for more cinematic history brought vividly back to life again. Tell us in the comments below which lost city or forgotten empire you want us to bring vividly back to life next here on this very same channel.